All right, picture this. It's the first week of a new semester. You're feeling good, you're excited for your classes, and then you pull up the required reading list. And that excitement just deflates, right? As you start adding up the cost of these books you absolutely have to get. It is a feeling that millions and millions of students know way too well. And it always leads to the same question: why? How on earth can one book for one class cost hundreds of dollars? And you might think, oh, it's just inflation, right? Well, not quite. The real answer is a story about a market that is unique and, frankly, completely broken. I mean, just look at a number like this, $295.50. And let me be clear, this is not some made-up number to scare you. This is a real price for a single textbook in a major subject. Seeing a price tag like that, it makes the problem feel very real. And that quote really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? When the books you need for just a few months cost as much as a small used car, you know that something in the system is fundamentally backwards. So what's really going on here? Well, the heart of the problem is something economists call a captive market. And it's a situation where all the normal rules you know about shopping and supply and demand, they pretty much get thrown right out the window. In this slide, this really breaks it down perfectly. Think about a normal market when you're buying groceries, a phone, whatever. You, the person paying the money, are the one making the choice. You can shop around. But in the textbook market, nope. Your professor chooses the book and you're the one stuck with the bill. And a lot of the time, there's no other real option. So that's the official definition of a captive market, right? But what it really means is you have no choice. You're forced to buy that product at that price. For students, it's simple. If you want to pass the class, you got to buy the book. There's no real shopping around. Now, this lack of choice gets even worse when you look at who's actually making these books. Just a few companies, you can see them here, Pearson, Cengage, and McGraw-Hill, they control almost 3/4 of the entire market. That is not what a competitive landscape looks like. And you know, there's a word for that. It's called an oligopoly. It's when a tiny number of massive companies dominate an entire industry. And with that much control, they can basically set prices however they want, because who's going to stop them? There are hardly any competitors to worry about. So, okay, we've got a captive market and an oligopoly. But how do these companies actually do it? How do they maintain that iron grip and keep prices so incredibly high? Well, they have a playbook, a very specific and very effective set of strategies. Let's break it down. It really boils down to 3 core moves, and each one is cleverly designed to maximize their profit by eliminating the very things that would normally drive prices down, like, say, a used book market. First up is what you could call the new edition treadmill. Every few years, a publisher will release a shiny new version of a textbook. And the changes? Often, they're tiny. They'll reorder a few chapters, maybe update a few questions, but it's just enough to make all those older, much cheaper used copies totally incompatible with the syllabus. Now, the second strategy is even more brutal, and it's the real knockout punch for the used book market: the access code. Publishers bundle their new books with a mandatory, one-time use code that you need to do your homework and take quizzes online. So even if you find a used book for cheap, it's useless without that code. You're forced to buy new. And the final piece of this puzzle, it's about locking in the instructors. See, publishers give professors a ton of free, elaborate resources. We're talking test banks, lecture slides, lesson plans, the whole shebang. Now that's helpful, for sure, but it also makes it incredibly difficult and time-consuming for a busy professor to switch to a cheaper alternative, because they'd have to rebuild their entire course from the ground up. So we've seen the how, the market, the strategies, but what about the so what? What is the actual real-world impact of all this? Well, the consequences for students and for the very idea of education are pretty severe. The fallout is huge. It adds thousands of dollars to the already crushing burden of student debt. It creates an unfair system where students from lower-income families start at a major disadvantage. And maybe most importantly, it can directly hurt how well students actually do in their classes. And that right there, that gets to the absolute heart of the problem. The prices are so high that a huge number of students just don't buy the books. They try to get by without them. And at that point, the system isn't just expensive, it's actively working against the whole point of education. But, you know, this story doesn't end there. It's not all doom and gloom. because in the face of all these challenges, a really powerful countermovement has started to grow, with students, professors, and even whole universities looking for ways to push back and reclaim education. And probably the most exciting weapon in this fight is something called OER, which stands for Open Educational Resources. Just think of it like this: high-quality, peer-reviewed textbooks, videos, and class materials that are totally free for everyone forever. And you can not only use them, you can share them and even change them to fit your classes. And when you put OER side by side with the publisher's answer to this, which is these new subscription models, the difference is just night and day. With OER, the cost is zero. You have access forever. You actually own the files. With the publisher subscriptions, you're just paying a fee to rent their material for a limited time. It keeps you locked in. And the fight is also happening on other fronts. We're seeing university libraries put way more course books on reserve for students to borrow. More and more professors are just writing their own materials and giving them away for free. And we're even seeing some legislative action to force more price transparency. So where does all of this lead? What's the next chapter in this story? Well, like with pretty much everything else these days, the future is being shaped by technology. And one technology in particular, AI, could either blow this whole broken market up or make it even stronger. Yeah, AI is a real double-edged sword here. On one hand, you have this incredible promise. It could be a tool of liberation, letting professors create amazing, customized, and totally free materials for their students, cutting out the publishers completely. But on the other hand, the publishers could use AI to build even more sophisticated all-in-one platforms, creating a digital lock-in that's harder to escape than ever before. So, that's where we are. We are at a crossroads, a real turning point. The future of how we all learn is being written as we speak. And the big question we have to answer is whether these incredible new tools will finally free knowledge for everyone, or if they'll just be used to build a bigger, better, more profitable trap.